You've been told that once your lungs are damaged, there's no going back. And for years, maybe you've felt that truth every time you reach for your inhaler, every time you walk from the bedroom to the kitchen and have to stop to catch your breath. But what if I told you that the food on your plate every single day could be as powerful as some of the medicines you take? Not a cure. Let me be very clear about that. There is no magic apple or green tea that will erase COPD. But there is growing, rock-solid evidence from places like the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine that certain nutrients can slow the decline, reduce the number of flare-ups, and help you feel like you have more control over your own lungs. Today, I'm going to walk you through the specific foods that research shows make a real difference, and I'll tell you exactly how to eat them without complicated recipes or expensive ingredients. Let me start with a story. A story about a man named Harold. Harold was 67 years old, a retired bus driver, and he'd been smoking since he was 15. He quit at 60, but the damage was done. His doctor told him he had moderate COPD, and every winter he'd end up in the hospital with pneumonia or a bad exacerbation. He felt like his life was shrinking. He couldn't play with his grandkids for more than a few minutes. He was scared to go grocery shopping because pushing a cart made him wheeze. One day, his pulmonologist suggested he see a dietitian. Harold laughed. He said, "Doc, I'm not here for a cooking class. My lungs are the problem." But the dietitian didn't talk about fancy diets. She talked about three things: reducing inflammation, supporting the immune system, and giving his body the building blocks to repair what little it could. Within 3 months of changing his daily food choices, Harold noticed he wasn't reaching for his rescue inhaler as often. 6 months later, he walked a full block without stopping. He still had COPD. He always would. But he wasn't its prisoner anymore. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening inside your lungs when you have COPD. The airways are constantly inflamed. Think of them as a hallway that's always a little swollen, a little narrowed. Every time you breathe in smoke, pollution, or even just dry air, that swelling gets worse. And your body tries to fight back with something called oxidative stress. It's like rust forming on the inside of your lungs. The more inflammation and oxidative stress you have, the harder it is to get air out. That trapped air makes you feel like you're suffocating. So the goal of nutrition for COPD isn't to rebuild what's already scarred. It's to calm down that hallway, to keep the rust from spreading, and to strengthen your immune system so a simple cold doesn't turn into a trip to the emergency room. The first food you need to eat every single day is dark leafy greens. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens. I know, you've heard that before. Eat your greens. But here's why they're non-negotiable for COPD: they're packed with vitamin K, which a landmark study from the European Respiratory Journal found is directly linked to better lung function. People with the highest intake of vitamin K had higher forced expiratory volume. That's the test where you blow out as hard as you can. But even more important, dark leafy greens contain a compound called nitrate. Not the harmful nitrates in processed meats, but natural nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide relaxes and widens your blood vessels, and guess what? It also relaxes the smooth muscle around your airways. That means a handful of cooked spinach at dinner can act like a mild, natural bronchodilator. Not as strong as your albuterol, but working gently in the background all day long. So how do you eat them without choking down a raw salad that's hard to chew? Steam them. Sauté them with a little olive oil and garlic. Throw a handful into your soup or scrambled eggs. Make it easy. Next, you need protein. But not just any protein. You need high quality, easy to digest protein that doesn't make you feel bloated or short of breath. Why? Because when you have COPD, your breathing muscles, especially your diaphragm, are working overtime just to move air. That constant exertion burns through energy and breaks down muscle tissue. If you don't eat enough protein, your body will start stealing it from your legs, your arms, your chest wall. And weaker breathing muscles mean even more shortness of breath. The best sources: eggs, fatty fish like salmon and sardines, Greek yogurt, and chicken. But let me point you to one specific study that changed how many pulmonologists think about food. Researchers at the University of Texas followed COPD patients for 5 years. Those who ate 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week had 50% fewer hospitalizations for exacerbations. 50%. That's because the omega-3 fatty acids in fish reduce the inflammatory molecules that trigger sudden lung attacks. And eggs, especially the yolks, are rich in vitamin D. Low vitamin D levels are directly linked to worse COPD outcomes and more infections. Most people over 60 are deficient. So eat your eggs in the morning. If you're worried about cholesterol, the current evidence shows that for most people, dietary cholesterol from eggs doesn't raise blood cholesterol. But check with your doctor. That said, 3 or 4 eggs a week is a good start. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you: berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. They're not just for dessert. They are among the most potent anti-inflammatory foods on the planet. The deep blue and red colors come from compounds called anthocyanins. A 2019 study published in the journal Nutrients gave COPD patients a cup of mixed berries every day for 8 weeks. The results showed a significant reduction in markers of oxidative stress in their lungs, and many reported less coughing and phlegm. Berries are also low in calories and high in water, so they won't fill your stomach and push up against your diaphragm, making it harder to breathe, which is a problem with heavy, fatty meals. You want small, frequent meals. Berries are perfect. Keep a bag of frozen berries in your freezer. Toss a handful into your oatmeal, your yogurt, or just let them thaw and eat them as a snack. We cannot skip garlic and onions. I know, the breath issue. But hear me out. Garlic and onions contain compounds like allicin and quercetin that have been shown in multiple studies to have powerful anti-inflammatory and antibacterial effects. For someone with COPD, the biggest fear is infection. A simple cold can become bronchitis or pneumonia because your lungs are already compromised. Eating raw or lightly cooked garlic every day can help keep the bacteria in your upper respiratory tract in check. There's a wonderful book called The Healing Power of Garlic by Dr. Paul Bergner that goes into the history and science. But the practical takeaway is this: crush a clove of fresh garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before you cook it. That activates the allicin. Add it to soups, stir-fries, or even mix it into softened butter and spread it on whole grain toast. Onions, especially red onions, have quercetin, which is a natural antihistamine and anti-inflammatory. It can help reduce the mucus production that clogs your airways. So when you're making a meal, start with a base of onions and garlic in olive oil. That simple step adds disease-fighting power to everything else you eat. Now, I need to address a fear that many of you have. You've heard that dairy makes more mucus. Is that true? The science is mixed. Some studies show no actual increase in mucus production, but many people with COPD feel like milk or ice cream thickens their phlegm. Here's what I'll tell you based on data and clinical experience. If you notice that after drinking a glass of milk or eating cheese you feel more congested, then avoid it. Listen to your body. But don't cut out all dairy unless you have to. Because yogurt and kefir fermented dairy contain probiotics that are essential for your immune system. And a strong immune system is your best defense against lung infections. So if you can tolerate plain Greek yogurt, eat half a cup a day. If not, get your probiotics from fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, or a probiotic supplement with strains like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. In fact, a 2020 review in the journal Chest found that probiotic supplementation reduced the frequency and duration of respiratory infections in COPD patients. Let's talk about hydration. Water. This is so simple, yet so often overlooked. When you have COPD, your body produces thick, sticky mucus that's hard to cough up. That mucus sits in your airways and becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. Drinking enough water thins that mucus, making it easier to clear. How much? At least 6 to 8 glasses a day, unless your doctor has told you to limit fluids for heart failure or another condition. But here's the trick, don't chug a big glass of water with your meals. That fills your stomach and pushes up on your diaphragm, making you feel more short of breath. Instead, sip water throughout the day. Keep a water bottle next to your chair, and take small sips every 15 minutes. Herbal teas are also great. Peppermint tea, ginger tea, and chamomile tea are soothing and provide additional anti-inflammatory benefits. Just avoid sugary drinks, they promote inflammation and weight gain, which makes breathing harder. Now, what about foods you should strictly avoid? 2 categories. First, processed meats. Bacon, sausage, ham, hot dogs, deli meats. These are preserved with nitrates and nitrites that, when cooked, form compounds called nitrosamines. Multiple studies have linked high consumption of processed meats to worse lung function and a higher